Wow, what a crazy few days it's been in Canada. The finance minister, the deputy prime minister has quit, another cabinet minister has quit, and rumors abounding throughout the media. Not the media we'll see here because we get blocked from seeing it, but around the world, that Justin Trudeau is also considering resigning. So welcome back to another video. I didn't expect to make this one after my just recent video on this what's happening in Canada, the crisis in Canada. But obviously the news at Freeland has quit, which leaves me. I've got some mixed feelings about that, and I'll explain why in a second. It is really kind of prompting me to make this video. And also reading up a little bit more and seeing a few reports or discussions on what are called the Nolan Principles. I studied at graduate school, actually my undergraduate and graduate school, I studied political science. And two books that really resonated with me that I still recall having learned a lot from was one was Max Weber, the German sociologist. Max Weber's Politics as a Vocation, which basically established who should become, or what are the characteristics of a politician, and what should we expect of a politician. And the other one is John Locke's Social Contract, written in the late 1600s, where basically John Locke posits the idea that governments exist to protect certain basic universal truths, that we have the right to life, happiness, and property, which then later became enshrined in the US, the Declaration of Independence and US Constitution. Inherent to John Locke's social contract, that it is a contract, and contracts involve more than one party. That we are also, as members of the community, that we are subject to this contract, and insofar as that we subscribe or we accept the dictates of the government because they are acting solely in our interests. So we support them in that endeavor by obeying the laws, following social norms. Clearly, throughout history, the social contract has been violated repeatedly, all over the world, not just in Canada, the UK, throughout the US, pretty much every country, the social contract is completely violated. A recent case, or so I should say recent, seems recent, in the 1990s, some scandals around government spending forced the Prime Minister of the day, John Major, to call a commission, and he created the Committee on Standards in Public Life, which was chaired by Lord Nolan. And Lord Nolan came up with a series of standards that we, as members of the public, members of the community, should expect to see in our, not just our elected politicians, but in anybody who basically takes a paycheck from the public purse, meaning our tax dollars. Anybody who is working at any level of government in any public capacity, be it in working for a hospital, if the hospital is indeed public funded. In Canada they are, same as the NHS, at your local car license office, your car license bureau, they need to exhibit these standards. So there are 7 standards. Before I get into those, so tonight's dram nightcap is a Shackleton. I'll be doing my next Malt Monday will be on Shackleton whiskey. has a fantastic story. If you haven't heard of it, I'm sure a lot of you, especially the Brits, will know who Shackleton is. One of our heroes. So I'll be doing my second Malt Monday review on Shackleton, and with this, I'm having a Camacho Connecticut cigar. It's fairly mild. Shackleton is fairly mild, so I didn't want one to overpower the other. So Lord Nolan came up with a series of principles that are to basically govern the behavior of public officials, elected or, again, taking a paycheck from the public purse. Now, what I'd like you to do when I go through these is think about your government. Think about any interactions you've had recently with a bureaucrat, with your MP. Think about your prime minister. Think about your finance minister, the chancellor of the exchequer. Are they living up to these principles? And should we expect that they do live up to these principles? I personally believe they should, but it's up to you to decide whether or not they indeed have been. So, without further ado, that's good. The 7 principles are the 7 principles of public life. The first one, selflessness. Public office holders should always act in the public interest, meaning that they should not be acting in their interest. They should not be acting in the interest of their party. The only interest they should be acting in is our interest, the community, the public's interest. So the first principle is selflessness. Overrides absolutely everything. The second principle, integrity. Public office holders should not be influenced by outside individuals or organizations and should report conflicts of interest. So just listen to that one again and think of that. I don't know how many instances of Trudeau's just the past couple of years. And then you can even if you start thinking about the lobbyists in the States, public office holders should not be influenced should not be influenced by outside individuals or organizations and should report conflicts of interest. How many times can you think of recently where your government has acted in the interests of a specific group for potentially benefit? Have they always acted in the public interest? I don't know. It's a question I'm asking. Objectivity. Public office holders should make decisions fairly and impartially based on merit and the best evidence. Now, in light of COVID, this one is really, public office holders should make decisions fairly and impartially based on merit and the best evidence. Now, I think we're beginning to see and understand that a lot of evidence that was potentially withheld during COVID, and courses of actions were being enforced that were not in the public's interest, the lockdowns, or the individual's interest, being forced to undergo a certain medical procedure that they did not want to. How many cases, how many people do you know who accepted grudgingly a certain medical intervention that they did not want to keep their job, to not be vilified, so that they could travel, so they could go and see a dying relative in a hospital, so they could visit an aged family member in the nursing home? How many people do you know took that solely for that, and they were basically forced and coerced into it? So were those decisions, those dictates made using the best evidence? Now, we were told to follow the science, but the science being followed was knowingly faulty, or there was a lot of it that was withheld. we were only given snippets. I know plenty of people that jumped right into it, very supportive of the policies that were being made, believing what they were being told, believing they were being given the best evidence, when we know now that we were not being given the best evidence. The fourth principle, accountability. Public office holders are accountable to the public for their decisions and actions. Wow. I don't think we're ever going to see certain politicians, Trudeau, Freeland, Fauci, the local where I live, the local, or in Canada, they have something, the local medical officers of health, who were forcing, again, during the COVID era, forcing people to undergo a medical intervention. Where Trudeau has faced how many ethics violation hearings and has been found culpable of violating ethics. Will he ever be held accountable? No, absolutely not. I think anybody who says yes, he'll be held accountable, I think is wishful thinking. He will never be held accountable for that. So we're suffering a lack of accountability. The fifth principle, openness. Public office holders should be transparent about their decisions and actions and should not withhold information from the public unless there is a clear and lawful reason. Now, I understand that there are times where information must be withheld. In a past life, I had a position where I maintained a top secret security clearance. I had in my possession a lot of information that was either potentially damaging to an individual, an operation of some kind, or to Canada in general. So that information had to be kept secret. If I had shared it, I would have been in violation of the oath I swore, and open to criminal prosecution. But at the end of the day, I maintained that level of secrecy because I was, again, protecting either an individual, an operation, or Canada itself. So there are times when information must be kept secret. When information is in the public good, it should not be kept secret. When there is no risk to anybody's dignity, self-worth, physical health, that information must be shared. It does not belong to a few. It belongs to all of us. Especially when that information, we can use that information to make informed decisions about how we live our lives, and we can make informed health decisions. The sixth, this is a good one, honesty. Public office holders should be truthful. Yes, they should be truthful. Are they truthful? I'll let you decide that one. And the seventh principle, leadership. Public office holders should act as examples to others and should call out poor behavior. They should act as examples to others. How many of you want to model yourselves based upon the leadership that you currently have? I'm struggling. We've had leaders, I believe, in history. We can look back and yes, we have had leaders. They may have had flaws as human beings. I mean, anybody that doesn't have a flaw as a human being, you take somebody like, an obvious one, Churchill, who was able to galvanize a nation, galvanize a world, in fact, not just a nation, to bring us through some of our darkest times in history, to face down and defeat tyranny. So we've had leaders. We've had leaders that our current leaders, they can model themselves on. But they don't. They act out of self-interest. They act to protect the narrative of their political party, they have come to a series of conclusions or beliefs that they are completely unwilling to change. Again, despite the evidence, despite the impact on the good of the community, they are completely unwilling to change. That's not a leader. A leader is one who can influence others by their actions, by their words, but by the example they're setting. So again, do you see in those who hold office where you are, in the UK, in Canada, wherever else in the world you're watching, do you have leaders, or do you have people who just tell you what to do? So we're going to be going through some interesting times. I mean, already I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift. A lot of the mainstream media in Canada is now asking questions about Trudeau's leadership. Will he resign? Those people have absolutely no shame whatsoever. They've towed the party line for years now. But now they're just like deserting the sinking ship. Trudeau's making some changes. He's appointed a new finance minister. And at this point, it's almost like I'm just watching a rerun of the Titanic, and you've got somebody just trying to rearrange the deck chairs and make it look nice. It just seems like a complete waste of time. Jagmeet Singh, the head of the NDP, today calling for Trudeau to resign. All I want to say to that is you've had every opportunity over the past year, 2 years, however long that agreement you've had with the Liberals, to basically support their minority government, which you have done faithfully for whatever benefits you yourself, your party, your MPs are gaining from this. You have backed up this government. Without that support, there could have been an election. There could have been a non-confidence vote in the House, and there could have been an election. So that you are now coming out, trying to curry favor now with the electorate that you're making the right decisions, you want Trudeau to quit. It's too late. Shame on the Liberals, the backbenchers. I watched PMQs today, and just seeing the nodding heads. I mean, Trudeau and Freeland, they weren't there. Trudeau wasn't there. Trying to answer, or they're refusing to answer because they can never answer a question. Why, despite the fact they were supposed to come back with a deficit of $40 billion, they've come back with a $60 billion deficit. Nobody can answer a question. PMQs is an absolute sham. Nobody answers anything. So yeah, we don't have leadership there. I don't see any of the 7 principles being subscribed to whatsoever. I have a hard time seeing any of this. I've met some good people. I shouldn't say all. When I go to the local municipal offices, you meet some good people, but generally these are people acting out of self-interest. They're not acting in the community's benefit. They're there for the paycheck. They're there for the pension. I don't see any of our elected officials, any of the politicians subscribing to any of the 7 principles whatsoever. They'll give them lip service. They'll talk about leadership. They'll talk about integrity, accountability, openness, honesty. But truly, how many of them are living up to it? So ask yourself that question where you live. And keep these principles in mind. You can go on Google. They're on the government UK website. You can look up the Nolan Principles. And when you're considering, because there will be elections coming, although Starmer is trying to delay a whole bunch of elections in the UK. When you are making a decision to vote for an MP and ultimately voting for the Prime Minister, ask yourself, are those that are running living up to these principles? Do they exhibit these principles? And if not, demand of them that they do live up to these principles. Forward them a copy. Say that this is what we expect of you. All right, guys. So I didn't expect to do this, but again, this video, but the events of the last couple of days, and then just thinking about leadership. I just wanted to come and share a few more thoughts. So don't forget, next Monday will be the second Monday. I'm reviewing Shackleton. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate you subscribing. I'm going to be doing a little bit more of these commentaries throughout my regular content. So I hope you enjoy both forms of content. And if there's something you'd like to, if you have any thoughts, any comments, send me a message, drop me a comment below, and I'll get back to you. And anything you'd like me to talk about, drop me a line. But until then, hold on. Things are going to get a little bit bumpy, a little bit rocky, but we'll get there. We're going to get through this. So until then, look after yourselves, be good. Sláinte.